It's fantasy football time on HQ with the FFT guys. Fantasy Football Today, the only podcast you need to dominate your fantasy league. It's been a really busy week on the waiver wire. So many injuries to look at and really impactful injuries. I've lost, I think, one of my teams. My top 3 picks are all out, including Joe Burrow. Lamar Jackson right now questionable, but that's iffy at best for this weekend, and he might miss multiple weeks. So we're kind of reaching. We're looking on the wire. We're looking for fill-ins. Let's get some starts and sits with Heath Cummings and Adam Aizer. Heath, I'll let you start us off with your starts. And I was looking at the projected numbers for Justin Fields this week, through the roof as he faces perhaps the worst defense in football.
Yeah, and he's really been pretty fantastic in 2 of his 3 games. You look at the overall passing numbers, they're not bad at all. And against this Dallas secondary, they should be flat out good. That anytime he can be halfway decent as a passer, we want to start him because he runs for 60 yards a game and usually a touchdown. 2 guys that are injury replacements that I am pretty excited about starting this week: Cam Skattebo and Jalen Waddle. Now, Waddle's been a guy who's obviously been on the field for the Dolphins whenever he's been healthy, but he's not been someone we can necessarily trust when Tyreek Hill's been on the field. With Tyreek Hill out for the year, I would expect a minimum of 7 targets per game for Jalen Waddle, at maybe 8 or 9 targets per game. He's had 12 games since the start of 2023 where he's had at least 7 targets. He's averaged 17 fantasy points per game in those 12 games. That's not our expectation for this week, but our expectation is that he's a very high-end wide receiver too, both this week against the Panthers and moving forward for the rest of the season. Congratulations if you had him on your bench. You're starting him now. Cam Skattebo took over for Tyrone Tracy when Tracy hurt his shoulder. I don't think Cam Skattebo is giving this job back. A ferocious runner, a capable pass catcher, a good matchup against the Saints. Hey, they're only 1.5-point underdogs. We'll forget the fact that they're actually underdogs to the Saints. How disappointing is that? Should be 20-plus touches in this game for Cam Skattebo. You can start him as a borderline RB1.
And Adam, for your starts, you're going to look at a game on CBS between a couple of 3-1 teams at 4:05 Eastern, the Bucs and the Seahawks. It's in Seattle.
Yeah, well, first of all, I hope none of these guys are on any of your teams, Chris, because they will probably get hurt based on what you said earlier. But I like Sam Darnold this week. He just hasn't been throwing much. They're one of the most run-heavy teams. But every team that has faced Tampa Bay this year has been more pass-heavy than what they usually are. And usually it's significantly more pass-heavy because you cannot run on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've given up more than 43 rushing yards to a running back once in their last 13 games dating back to last season. So I think Sam Darnold's going to have to throw the ball. He's tied for the NFL lead in yards per attempt. If you need a quarterback this week, if you don't have Lamar Jackson or Jordan Love or anyone else that's on bye, I think Darnold is a good place to pivot. The Bucs should keep this game competitive. I think we're going to see the most pass attempts of the year for Seattle. So I do like Sam Darnold.
All right, and let's go to sits. Unfortunately, Heath, you're going with a guy that I had to pick up because Joe Burrow got hurt. It's Daniel Jones at the top of this list. Explain that, because he's had early success and he's facing a Raiders defense that has some holes.
They do have some holes, although they've been much better than we expected so far this season. My problem with Daniel Jones is the same problem it's been throughout his NFL career. He does not throw touchdown passes. He certainly doesn't throw 2 in a game very often. This year, 1 touchdown pass in each game, a 3.3% pass touchdown rate. His career mark is 3.1%, one of the lowest marks in NFL history for quarterbacks that have thrown as many passes as Jones has. Now, what he's done in the past is, and he did earlier this year, make up for that with his rushing. He had a couple of rushing touchdowns in one game, so he had a huge game. He had 1 rushing touchdown in a game. He was a fantasy starter. The last 2 weeks, he hasn't had a rushing touchdown. He hasn't reached 20 fantasy points, and it really disturbed me that we saw Tyler Warren with those short yardage carries, because we already knew Daniel Jones was competing with Jonathan Taylor for carries inside the 5-yard line. If they're going to use Tyler Warren in that role as well, we can't count on rushing touchdowns from Jones, and we've never been able to count on passing touchdowns for Jones. A couple other guys that I'd like to get away from: T. Higgins. If you've played him the last 2 weeks, you don't need any explanation as to why. He's had almost no success with Jake Browning, and Jamar Chase really hasn't either. The difference is Jamar Chase at least still has a 30% target share. T. Higgins has been behind the tight ends, whoever's playing tight end for the Bengals in terms of targets, and Chase Brown is seeing a healthy amount. So I just don't think the volume's there. You can't count on the efficiency. I don't want to start Higgins even in a 3 wide receiver league. And then just a word of caution. I think a lot of people who picked up Michael Carter may have to start him because all their other running backs are hurt. That's okay. We right now expect him to be the starter for the Arizona Cardinals. But I will just say the last time we saw Michael Carter start a game was the end of last year, week 18. He got 21 touches. Fantastic. He produced 57 yards. Amari DeMarcado is going to take most of the work in the passing game, and he may get a little more work in the running game than we are expecting. Carter's a good flex. He's a fine injury replacement, but I'm not going to start him over any of the guys that we've been starting at running back.
Speaking of running backs to sit, Adam, I understand you're fading an entire team of running backs. Who is it?
Yeah, it's the Patriots, and I do agree with Heath about Michael Carter. For example, I'll also say you could sit Ken Walker this week, but not for Michael Carter. But the Patriots running backs, I do think I would sit all of them. I would sit all of them for Michael Carter and any other replacement running back for Sean Tucker, for example, if Bucky Irving's out, and definitely for Rico Dowdle if Chuba Hubbard were out this week. But yeah, the Patriots running backs, look, we just don't know which one to trust. We don't know who's going to be the goal line back. We don't know how many carries it's going to be. So I'm just going to avoid Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson, and everybody is avoiding Antonio Gibson. I mentioned Ken Walker. Look, it's kind of tough to sit Ken Walker. He's so talented. He's got 1 catch in 3 straight games. I think he'll catch more passes this week because, like I said, I think the Seahawks are going to throw the ball more. But I gave that stat earlier. 13 games now, going back to last year, 1 running back has more than 43 rushing yards against the Buccaneers. They just have such a good run defense. You factor that in, plus the fact that Zach Charbonnet works in on passing downs. Zach Charbonnet works in at the goal line. He got the touchdown last week, and I'd sit Ken Walker. And one of the toughest calls is A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown has 8 or more targets in 3 straight games. He's only come through once, but you love the targets. A.J. Brown is talking. They're talking about getting him involved. You love that kind of storyline. A.J. Brown is going to get Patrick Surtain this week. I think he's a number 2 wide receiver. I wouldn't necessarily sit him. I'm looking at this list. I would start Worthy over him. I don't think I'd start Keenan Allen. I would start Marvin Harrison over him, but this is a great range for him. This is where he should be. There are definitely guys you could start over A.J. Brown, but he is not an outright sit.
Yeah, you take that 1 game away, and really it was the end of that Rams game when he went for a 38-yard touchdown. You take that game away, and he has 42 receiving yards in the 3 other games. Adam says sit Brown once again this week, or a wide receiver 2 at best. FFT, where you can hear those guys, plus Jamie, plus Dave, helping you navigate your fantasy season. Here's the slate this week on CBS. We don't have the doubleheader, so you're going to get one of these windows, either 1 o'clock Eastern, highlighted by those Eagles hosting the Broncos. Eagles trying to stay perfect. If you don't get an early game, maybe you'll get Bucks and Seahawks matchup between 3 and 1 teams. Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus.